Everybody, so I'm here at RePC. This is a store that actually recycles PC, Apple, all kinds of vintage stuff. And it's here, right here in Seattle. So I thought, while I was here looking around, I was like, you know what? I'll make a quick video and we'll take a look inside and see what we can see. So let's go inside. Well, as you might be able to tell, I recorded this footage back in the middle of the human malware we were all going through. And who doesn't appreciate Captain Jean-Luc Picard himself asking you to wear a mask? Let's just take a look at this place. Sorry for the shaky footage, but all I had was my phone. But take a look. There's all these computers. Everything's laid out nicely. Looks like they might have some vintage things. And above and below each set of tables and bins is dedicated to a particular type of computer hardware. Now this drew my eye right away. A couple of Power Macs here with some monitors, some with speakers attached, and also some classic Macs sitting over here to the right. There's an image writer printer, so the prices here are a little much. In fact, I even talked to him about it a little bit to say, look, if you're not selling these, you might want to lower the prices just a bit because they were a little high. I'm not afraid to say, but yeah, all kinds of interesting things that people have donated. Even this Macintosh 2CI logic board probably needs recapping. Here's an Apple image writer box from Computerland, of all places, so that's pretty cool. And down below here, we have all sorts of Mac power cords, the ones that kind of disappear into the sockets. Those are always nice to have a few of those. Some Macintosh keyboards as well. Yeah, just a kind of a neat little assortment here of keyboards. Not all of them were Macintosh, but some of them were knockoff Mac or third-party Macintosh devices. So you don't see those as much, or at least I don't. They had some more modern PCs as well. Here's a semi-modern Alienware case. $824, yowza. But yeah, pretty cool looking case. They did have some leftover CRTs over here. If you needed one, this would be a good place to come and pick one up perhaps. Another cool looking Thermaltake or Thermaltake case there. I had a nice little look at this one. It looks almost like something you'd see on a Death Star or something like that. Really like this one. And here's a MacSync monitor. I know of multi-sync monitor, but this is the first time I had seen a MacSync monitor, and that's probably just because not really from the Mac world. I would have never seen that back in the day. There's a friendly Packard Bell sitting over here. Multimedia C115, it looks like. And they had a number of these small tower cases, probably Pentium machines. So those were kind of nice to see because, you know, I'm all in for a beige box now and then. And they even had an old school TV. Too bad I couldn't take this back to the Hack Shack with me. I'm looking for one kind of like this with the wood paneling and the buttons on the front like that. A little IBM monitor down here. Looks like something that went with a PS2 system, perhaps. Here's some good old E machines, $80. If you want to come and get them, never need to upgrade. And this was a really cool monitor. It was a Pi 3 monitor. I'd never heard of it before, but yeah, this is definitely something that is up my alley and I would have been interested in checking out. Here's an Apple Color Composite monitor just sitting on the floor as well, an early one too. There's a Betamax player, Sony Betamax. $150. I wonder if it still works. Some Laserdisc players as well. I really like these monitor / power stands. Again, this is something I'd like to have in the space if I can find one locally. But it's really nice because it allows you to swivel the monitor around and have one of those old school power bank things at your disposal as well. Over here on this table, there was a lot of old cassette players and old telephones and things like that. There's an old Bose wave radio. Remember those? And look at this. Look at this big boombox you could get here. Really nice. Panasonic. Not bad at all. Working unit. And here's an Emerson boombox that had a TV built in. So you could listen to your cassettes and watch probably black and white TV at the same time. Yep, there's his black and white TV. Again, if I was closer, probably would have picked that up to do an episode on the channel with it. There's a nice looking Sony unit back here too. This one looks a bit older, although it is kind of Emerson, which was one of the cheaper brands at the time, but certainly looks nice. Certainly fits the bill. 2-deck boombox. Look at that. It's a few 8-tracks here. A little Barbra Streisand for you. Now here's something interesting. I wasn't really sure what it was. It's here with the projector stuff, but it's actually a white noise machine. And you can choose, surf or a bunch of different sounds just to make some white noise in the background. I thought these were more of a modern day invention, but this one appears to be a little older, maybe from the early 80s or something. Here's a scoreboard in case you need to do any keeping of scores at your school or something. You could just come pick up the scoreboard, set it up. Here's some older test equipment, some scopes, oscilloscopes if you need them. All kinds of different things, probably some power supplies mixed in there as well, and different instruments. And there's a whole table of old printers, laser printers, and those bigger office printers that nobody really wants anymore. They also have lots and lots of stereo equipment, receivers, turntables, tape decks, as we saw before on the other channel, and just VCRs, all sorts of things, amplifiers. Here's some Archer branded equipment from Radio Shack. Here's a Lucid Studio 24-bit analog compressor, I think that was. You can see the nice VU meters, the digital VU meters it has. They have a really nice selection of VCRs too, and I really need to check next time I'm there for a Super VHS or SVHS VCR, because I kind of need one of those as well. Here's a dynamic expansion unit, Dynex 2. I don't know if this was wireless or what it was, but I just love the look of this thing with all the old connectors on it. Okay, now we're getting into something that I may have room in my suitcase for, and that is some cables. So they have everything kind of sorted here into different types of cables. People rummage through here, so it's not always 100%, but at least it is. They made an attempt here to sort things out, and the prices here are, pretty reasonable. $2, $3, $4. They also have various kind of grab bag PC cards here, different types of cards, lots of modems and networking cards and things like that, and even a few records and CDs that people have dropped off, I guess. If you come here, be sure you check below the bins as well, because they have a lot of stuff that are on the bottom shelf, like these USB to PS2 adapters, little cables and splitters and things like that. The smaller stuff is down here on the bottom, so make sure you check that out as well. And if you need a power supply, they have lots of those, and they're all labeled with the voltage. So you can go through and rummage through and see if you can find one 5 volts, 1 amp or 500 milliamps or whatever you might need with the right connector on it. But yeah, they've got a lot of those. A lot of CD-ROM drives as well. CD, DVD, Blu-ray drives. And here's one of those multi-function things that fits in your floppy drive bay. You hook it up to USB and got a CF reader and SD card reader and lots of different things. And if you need a keyboard, this is a good place to come, because they have all sorts of keyboards kind of sorted by brand and shape. And they even have some old beige keyboards. I looked through here to see if there was anything really interesting, but most of these were just the plastic dome type switches. Nothing really fancy or interesting, but if you're looking for one, here's a good place to come grab one. And again, lots of motherboards. You need an old motherboard, it's a good place to come. Here's a Buckshot lock and load. What is this? Some sort of controller for the Wii, I guess. I've never seen one of these before. And over here behind the glass, they've got a lot of storage devices. So hard drives, memory, SD cards, CF cards, things like that are all here behind the glass. So something else you might want to check out. And they've got some vintage consoles as well, some Nintendo stuff, some GameCube, and some games here on hand. So the other thing that they have, at least at this location, is a little museum. Here's actually a hard drive, really old hard drive. I can't remember how much storage it had, maybe 10 megabytes or something like that. But this is a real museum piece here. There's a MSI 8080 and a couple of old terminals. Here's a PDP-8, it looks like. Nice. Here's an interesting one from 1984. It's called the Hyperion. They don't even know really what it is, but it's a DOS-based machine. So that was pretty cool to see. Looks like it's got modem built in, some serial connectors in the back, but yeah, pretty neat. Here's a Xerox Sunrise, another one that I hadn't heard of before, probably from the 1980s, I'm guessing, but it has one of these little tape drives built into the keyboard so you can store on tape if you want. Now we're getting into the modern era here. They have first gen Amiga, it looks like there, and Macintosh, a Lisa color computer I see over there, which is really cool, and then getting into the IBM 5150. And even a Commodore 64 over here. So these systems weren't really laid out in any particular order, and they weren't plugged in, so you couldn't use them or anything, but they just had them on display, which was really nice. You could kind of go through here and get nostalgic over your old computers, whether it's an Apple II or otherwise. Here's an interesting sound device, a speaker of some sort that they had connected to the Apple II. I'm not really sure what that was. They also had a couple of old Commodore PETs, which is really nice to see. Wish I could find one of those. And I love the look of these terminals, the Atom 3A terminals. Really, really cool. I think they were featured in the Loki spinoff. Yeah, they had a lot of other old boards and magazines and things. There's a picture of the Altair, that episode of Popular Electronics, what they advertised the Altair for the first time, really kicked off the modern PC revolution. So that's about it. There's actually 2 locations, and each one said the other one was a bit better for some reason. They took pride, I guess, in their stores. But if you're ever in the Seattle area and you need something to do on a rainy afternoon or something, stop by RePC and see what they have. I don't think you'll regret it if you're a retro computer lover like I am. Okay, well, I just want to show you some of the things I found at RePC and brought back to the Retro Hack Shack, starting with this Sun keyboard. I have a couple of Sun systems that I haven't featured on the channel yet, and this keyboard was there. It was $54.55, I guess, if you round up. And yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is, you know, that's not bad for a keyboard in general. Plus, I got a keyboard and a mouse for that price, so $25 for each, let's say. Yeah, I thought that was really well worth it. And just look at this mouse over here. If you haven't seen, if you remember one of these mice, it's one of the older mice with the 3 very non-ergonomic buttons on it for a workstation or something like that. So yeah, really cool. I used to work at Sun, so this is nostalgic for me. And this will go well with my Sun systems. Okay, I've got everything else in this Sam's Jewelry bag here. I'll just pull this out one at a time and just show you some of the stuff I got. Most of this was $1. Here's a couple of cords, and these are the kind that plug into either a power strip, like for a data center. And what I wanted them for was to plug into the back of my old vintage IBM computers that have the extra plug to go to a monitor. These are getting a little bit harder to find, and they had some there, so I picked them up. Next up is one of these parallel to SCSI connectors. Not sure if you can see that, but it's parallel on this side, or maybe you could, that could be a SCSI bus. I think on the old Macs, they had a similar pinout like that was SCSI. And then it goes to like some sort of micro SCSI connection here. At least that's what I think it is. But anyway, it's not a common cable, so I figured I'd go ahead and pick this up just in case I need it down the road. Okay, now some of you may be familiar with this cable. This is a special RGB cable for Sony, certain old Sony monitors, CRT monitors. And it's got a big DIN connection on this side. And then it's got this blocky 8-pin connector on the other side that's kind of proprietary to Sony. And these things actually fetch quite a bit on the internet, you know, about $25 on eBay. I'm not going to sell it though. I wanted it because I had sold another one previously, and this one then I regretted selling it, so I always wanted another one. So yeah, now I've got one, and if I ever get one of those Sony monitors, I'll have an RGB connection that I can use. And again, I found this in the dollar bin, so $1 for this, but $25 on eBay, not bad. Okay, now this is just a serial cable to like one of those connectors that would be on a PC card, a PCMCIA card, like for a modem or something. There's a little serial connection. And I always pick these up when I see them because you can never find them together with the cards when you find the cards. So I've got a whole bag full of these things. And, you know, if I ever want to use a PC card, I just have to rummage through there and find the right connection. So these are always handy to have. I know these are hard to see because they're in the bag, but these are just a couple of 9-pin cables, DE9 cables that you could use for serial connections, or these are actually like extensions. But I use these, I cut these up and use these to replace the ones that come out of CGA and EGA monitors when the E-Waste cuts them off. So I'm always on the lookout for these so that I can replace those cables coming out of those monitors. Yes, another dollar bin cable find. This is a SCART connector. SCART really comes in handy. It's a European standard. A lot of times SCART capable televisions will have all the signals you need, like RGB and everything built in to this cable. So it's always nice to have an extra one that you can use or hack up to build a cable if you need to. So here's another video cable. This time it is a SGI 13W3, I think this is called. And this was used with a lot of SGI equipment. It was also used with some Sun equipment. May have been used with some Next servers, as like the Cube might have used this or had this as an option to connect to the display. So not a lot of systems used it, but the ones that did were mostly like workstations and stuff like that. Didn't have one of these, so I thought I'd pick one up just in case. You never know. Here's another one I found in the dollar bin. It's USB to like a Centronics type connector. I think this was for hooking up old printers to USB, and that would definitely come in handy if I want to hook up some old printers to a modern computer. And they had another one of these that was in the packaging, and it had the original label from the store, which was like $12 or $13. And when I took it up to the counter, I said, hey, I got this out of the dollar bin. And they're like, no, it says right here $12. And I was like, okay, never mind. Take that one. I'll be right back. And there was like 5 of these in the bin. Some of them were out of the packaging like this. So I went back to get the one that they would allow me to pay $1 for instead of the one that had the store price tag still on it. Yes, another dollar bin cable find. This is a MIDI breakout cable. So you can use this it has the MIDI plugs here, and then it has the connector that goes on the back of the sound card here. And that can even go to a joystick as well. So this way, I think this is what you would do is you'd plug this part into your sound card. This would go to your MIDI device, these two, and then this one would go to your joystick. So you could have all that plugged in at the same time. Can never have enough of these. I've got a couple already, but I figured, hey, for $1, I'll get one more. And just a Sony PlayStation cable. They had a bunch of these as well. And I've got an extra Sony PlayStation that I picked up for $5 or something, and it didn't have this. So I got this for, I think, $3 or something like that, just to pair up with that system. Here's another dollar cable bin, or whatever it's called, find. This is a 5-pin DIN extension. So I'm assuming you could use this for a keyboard or perhaps for a serial, if you had a 5-pin DIN serial connector, like on the Commodore 64 or something, you could use this to extend that connection. Of course, when you extend cables, sometimes they tend to attenuate and lose their signal strength. But, I figured that might come in handy someday if I have to do put a keyboard across the room and I want to control an old computer with it or something like that. I could plug this in to get that extra length for my keyboard. And here's another one of those 13W3 connectors, but I noticed on this one that the pinout is different on this one than the other one. So I'm going to have to do a little research on this, or if you know, let me know in the comments below. But the actual pins here in the middle are different on this one than they were on the other cable. So maybe one is for one thing and one is for another. I don't know. If you know, let me know. If you know the difference, let me know in the comments. All right, here's another random terminal cable, like a serial cable for a terminal. It's got a 9-pin DE9 on one side, and I think that's a 9-pin or 8-pin DIN on this side. And so I figured that could come in handy. Either I could cut the cable off in the middle and use those separately, or perhaps it says terminal right here on this little label. So perhaps there's a terminal that goes with this. Not really sure, but I figured I'd pick it up for $1. All right. Another dollar bin find. This is just a splitter. So if you wanted to use 2 joysticks, for example, With a joystick port, you could use this splitter and get some two-player action going on for your PC with the PC joystick connector. And last but not least, another weird kind of cable or non-standard cable. I think this is a USB to parallel port cable, so maybe this was used to transfer files or something with like some LapLink software. I noticed that back here, you probably can't see it, but there's a little power connector there. So something on here requires power, and it says on this side, it says micro image only. So yeah, I'm not sure what this was, but again, it was an odd cable, and I'm always on the lookout for odd ones because that's the one you're going to need for the very next E-Waste Wednesday episode. So I got this one too. If you know what this one is, leave this one in the comments below as well. So if you get a chance and you're in the Seattle area, I highly recommend stopping by RePC. You can look for vintage computers, but I think the real bargain is on the cables. All of these cables here were found there, and I really enjoyed my time. So that's going to do it for this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe. Sign up as a patron if you want to help support the channel. I thank all my patrons, and their names will be coming up in the credits in just a second. Until next time, thanks for watching. Patrons receive ad-free and early access to content after the episode commentary, and of course, your name in the credits. If you liked that episode, here's a few more you might enjoy, and I thank you for your support.
End of line.